Hello creative friends, this is Joy. So here is what I have so far in my glue book. I'm showing you that here, and now I need to go through and start covering the tags and inserts that I have in my pockets. So here is one that's like a fold out mailer thing I got, and it had some glue on it that I had to get off. And so I'm going to take this and decide how I want to cover it. I want to show you here all the scraps and bits and pieces that I cut off of the magazine images that still had some interesting color and patterns that I am going to keep, and I will either use these to cover other areas of this glue book or put them in my stash for future use. And so I decided that on this particular insert, I was going to add this magazine image. I really like this magazine image, so I decided to put that on this insert, and I'm gluing it. It's a full page insert, and it seemed to fit, or this full page magazine image, and it seemed to fit this insert, so I thought that would go well on there, and I like that. And I'll come back and decorate more. The point to this is to just quickly go through and try to use as much of my magazine images up as I possibly can to get this get them in this glue book. And so here I decided to put this lion on the front of this insert. I thought he would go well there. So I'm just gluing him down. And again, I'll come back later and do something about, the words and stuff on here. So I'm looking at the back of this particular insert, and I want to cover that up with something. So I decide that I'm going to just cover it up with a piece of paper since it'll be like on the back side. So here I'm measuring out like where I need to cut this down. And I want the blue to show, so I'm cutting it, to where that blue will show. And so here I'm just getting out my paper trimmer and then cutting off, to cut it down to the size I need it. And then I'm gluing that on. And this is just some paper from my stash that I have. So I wanted to just kind of cover up the back of that, and that's something I could have done later, covered this up, but I don't know, I decided to go ahead and do it now and take that same paper and cover that up as well on the flap there. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of covering up all of the advertising, and so that I can figure out later what to do with it, whether I'm going to add more to it or what have you. So that's what I have so far. So I stuck that back in the folder or the envelope, and like I said, I'll come back to it later and do something more to it. And here's another advertisement that I kind of folded in half and stuck it in one of the pockets. It's kind of like a folio. And I really like this lady, and I'm like trying to figure out where to put her, and I decided that I like this as like a folio and I want her on the front. So I'm going to glue around the front of this and glue her to the front. And I want her, I cut off the top so that I can line up the top of where I want that image to be to the top of the folio, I guess you call it, and then that way I could easily cut around and cut off any excess here. So I'm just trimming off the excess. So I really like her on the front, and I'm looking to see if there's any interest in the scraps I cut off. There wasn't, so I just threw them in the garbage. But yeah, any scraps I had left that, I thought would be, had some, you know, pattern and colors and stuff. Heck, I can use that later. Put that in my, if I don't use it in this, glue book, use it later, with my scraps to either make clusters or paper clips or something. I can do something with them later on. And so I decided that the inside of this I wanted to put white gesso. Now, I am showing you this, but I would not recommend this because it was a real pain in the behind. The gesso didn't really cover the advertising like I thought it would. I would have literally had to do 3 coats, but I ended up doing 2, and you'll see that in a minute why I ended up only doing 2. And I don't know what I'm going to do with the inside of this. I have not figured it out yet. But I go through and I add gesso, and it still didn't cover the advertising. So I got this spatula that I bought specifically for using in art journaling, and because I am not going to pay the price they want for those catalysts, and this works the same. I think, I don't know, it just works fine for me. So anyway, I decided to do a second coat of gesso, but to put it on more thickly. So that's what I'm doing with this spatula, or whatever you want to call it, is trying to get it on there more thick so that it will cover up the advertising, so I don't see that. But I have decided I didn't want to do this anymore. So any other ones that I decide to cover, I just used glued paper down. It's so much easier to glue paper. So here I've got it painted out, and I'm like, or gessoed I should say, and I'm like, okay, now what? The back of it, instead of using white gesso, I decided to use black and to use the same scraper or whatever you want to call it, because then that will cover it in 1 coat. And I'm trying to make sure that I get a straight line along the edge there, and so that's what I'm doing here. So basically I had to do 1 coat, let it dry overnight, do the second coat, let it dry overnight, do this, let it dry overnight. And it was like, it took me way longer to do this than I really cared to spend on it. So that's why any of the other inserts that I did, I just covered with paper to cover any advertising up that I want covered if it wasn't covered with magazine images. So just kind of a word of caution. I mean, if you have the time to spend on doing this and you want to do it, great. But I found this to be way too time consuming. I wanted to quickly put together a glue book and use up a lot of my images, magazine images, without having to spend months and years on it. So yeah, stuff like this just kind of causes you to spend a lot more time than, or at least more time than I wanted to spend. So yeah, did that, which I like the way it turned out. I mean, I'm happy with how it turned out. It'd probably be great in like, I don't know, like an art journal or something, and then you can use it for writing. But this being a glue book, I'm not necessarily going to use it for writing. So I'm like, now what do I do with the inside? I can maybe add some stuff. So these are like some pendants, pictures of jewelry that I cut up at some point, some other pictures that I had cut out that I was kind of playing around with and seeing what I could do with it. But yeah, all the different ways that I was trying to make it work, I just didn't particularly care for it. So I was auditioning and trying different things and trying to see, like, what I would like, and maybe add one of these things to the front to add more. But I've ended up deciding, what, I'm not really digging any of this, and I probably should, do like what I had planned to do, just try to get magazine images glued down first, and then come back to worried about the decorating part later. So in the end, since I couldn't seem to decide and I wasn't happy with any of the options here, I just decided to leave it like it was and stick it in the journal and figure it out later. I'll decide later on what to do with that. So I put it back in the pocket, yeah, and decide I will deal with it later. here was this card. I kind of like, was fine with that the way it was. Here was another insert that I decided, okay, I like this one. Let's see what we could do with it. So I like this picture of these birds. I like what it says. If we build it, they will come. That's kind of funny and cool at the same time. So I'm trying to see how that'll fit on there. And then I'm like deciding what I want to do for the inside. What I want to put on the inside. I like this picture of these lions. And so I thought, oh, that'll be good on the inside. That might work. And so I decided again, instead of doing all that just sewing garbage, I'm just going to cover it with paper. And I like this paper. It seems to go with the lions. So, yeah, I was happy with that. So that's what I decided to do, that I'm going to glue the paper down to the inside. So I want to make sure I get right to the edge. So I go around and I use the scrap paper there behind it so I don't get glue everywhere. And add glue to this whole page so I can glue this down. And I like that strip of red at the top, so I decided to leave it and then get that straightened up and folded so that it all folds up nicely. And then it didn't quite cover like everything, the bottom and stuff, so I got another piece and I added it to the bottom part. And then I decided to fold it over, and look at that, perfectly covers the other side, all the advertising on the other side. So I was pretty happy with that. So I am gluing that down to the other side as well. And then folding it, making sure everything folds up good. I over glued it there. So I'm just trying to clean off any excess glue and then fold it. And now I'm going to glue down my lion, my picture of lions on the inside. And I'm only showing you some of these that I decorate. I'm not going to go through and show all of them because there's a lot of them. And yeah, I worked on it for quite a few days, so I'm just showing you some examples and ideas, and just like I did in the first two videos where I just showed you some example and ideas of, how to cover the pages and things that you can do. And at the end, I'll do a complete flip through of the whole journal once I've finished with it, so you can see the whole thing. So here I decided to go through my stash because I need to find something. And I could have done this later, but I went ahead and decided while I was here I was going to find something that I can use to cover up that logo or whatever there. So I found a little saying there that I could stick on there. And I will do more with this again later as well. I wanted to put something on that flap. So I'm looking to see if there's anything that might go well on the flap. And I did decide on this dream. I kind of like that. I thought that would go well. So if you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up. You can also subscribe to see more. And you can go back to see the previous videos. And I hope you stick around to see the next video where I show you where I go through and do some more decorating on these pages. So I'm going to continue to work in my glue book and try to get this thing finished in a timely manner. And I thank you guys for stopping by and watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye bye.